to read. I bit off more than I can chew. This month, for November, I plan to participate in Tome Topple, which ran from the 9th to the 22nd, and the Believathon, which is a readathon by Gavin Hetherington, link down in the description to his announcement. Basically, you're reading children's books, middle grade, or picture books, I guess. And for the entire month of November, you're doing that. At least one book a week, or you can find books to fulfill the prompts, the 10 prompts that Gavin created. And nonfiction November, which is run by a book Olive. I'll link her announcement down in the description below, but it's to read nonfiction books for the entire month of November. You can read whatever you want as long as it's nonfiction, unless you want to follow her prompts. I'm not following her prompts. We'll see. The month of November is not quite over yet, but it's already difficult. I don't know what made me decide to do this to myself, but I did. That being said, I did read a lot. November. But yeah, so let's just get into it. The first book I finished was a reread. The first time I've ever reread this book, Harry Potter and the Chamber of Secrets. And you can tell from the artwork and how, like, beat up the dust cover is, that this is the original first edition from, what is this, Scholastic. And yeah, so not a lot to say except that I enjoyed this just as much as the last time. The first two books of this series really, to me, speak about, friendship and just like the magical part of Harry Potter. They're like enticing. They bring you in. They set the tone, the plot, and everything about what's going on. But, and please excuse me, I'm experiencing dry eye with the weather, so I might tear up randomly, and that has nothing to do with the books themselves. Yeah, so this book continues that. We learn a little bit more about Harry, a little bit more about Voldemort, and Harry's friends and their backgrounds, more about Hagrid. I think this book, more than any other, gives you more of Hagrid's background and how he became a gamekeeper. So, yeah, I'm pretty sure I gave this like 5 stars. I might bump those down, but if I want to be appropriate, I know I love later books more, the 4th and 5th in particular. So we'll see though. The next book I read. Oh, actually, before I go on, this I read for the Believathon prompt to read a book with magic in it. Now, pretty much every book I read has some kind of magic, but this was the most obvious, so that's what I put this in for. So the next book I read was, again, for Believathon, or the next book I finished. It's Winnie the Pooh by A.A. Milne. This is tiny. I really enjoy this. I'm so glad I read this. I've never read these before. I've seen Winnie the Pooh movies. I've seen TV shows, and there's always just been something lovable about the characters and also really comforting. And what I really enjoyed, this is basically a bunch of short stories. I know, like, the background of Winnie the Pooh, like the creation is that Milne kind of created these stories for his son Christopher Robin, and they became kind of known, and he eventually wrote them down and into book form. And I thought that's really sweet. What's extra special is the fact that the way this is written is like that. So if you're making up these characters or creating a story for your child from your imagination, again, excuse my teary eyes, it's not like you're not going about this like you're writing a novel. Like you come up with, you might have the characters that show up over and over again because your kids like them, so use them, but also because that's easier. Like you just create new stories and new adventures with these characters because you remember them, and so does your child. And just even the way it starts, there's a table of contents, but the way it starts is it's like, Christopher comes down the stairs with the bear and kind of asks for a story, and Milne's like, okay, and then we get into that, and he tells him basically 10 stories in this one, and yeah, 10 stories, and then it's like, okay, I'm gonna go take a bath now. Will there be, more? And it's just the way it's written is very much a storytelling format, and I enjoyed that. Um, that helped with me get over my issues with reading short story collections. I finished this in a 24-hour period, but I like put it down for a while and then picked it up the next day. So yeah, I love this. It just made me feel comfortable and happy, and like I was wrapped up in a blanket. The characters are ones that I've enjoyed most of my life, and I went back and watched like 2 Winnie the Pooh movies since Disney Plus came out a couple of weeks after I read this. The next book that I finished was Samurai Game by Christine Feehan. This finally, of course, the month where I'm like, I've got 3 readathons that I'm doing. This finally came from the library, and it's the large print edition. I started this 2 days before Tome Topple, but because it's the large print, there are 643 pages, I think. Yeah. And so I was like, this counts. So I counted it for Tome Topple. Not Olive, sorry. Tome Topple is run by Sam at Thoughts on Tomes. I forgot to mention that. So Sam, I think this counts, right? I hope this counts because my other tome I didn't finish so in time. But anyway, this is a continuation of the game series by Christine Feehan, and this is about some soldiers and orphan girls from around the world who were either willingly or unwillingly experimented on to give them enhanced abilities, which include psychic powers, but also strength. And in the case of the couple focused on in this book, teleportation abilities, which is really rare. They're given these powers by this kind of megalomaniac scientist who has his fingers in all parts of the government, but is now hiding from those who he experiments on, who did not appreciate some of the things that he did to them, and is still doing to others. So they're still fighting Whitney. Sam, the guy, is a character that was there from book 1, and I've been waiting for his book, and I'm happy with who he wound up with. Azima, is it Azima? Gosh, or is it Azura? I'm a mess, y'all. Just give me a second. But Azami, Jesus Lord, sorry. Azami is cool. I love her abilities. I like the samurai background, but she became kind of a very American cliched Asian woman. She's small, she's quiet, she doesn't like to show emotions. She's very much into taking care of her man, and that bothered me. I'm trying to figure out if I feel like that's racist or not, and that's why. But even if it's not, it's just so cliche. I wasn't happy. Um, Everything else I enjoyed. I just feel like those parts of their relationship should have been less, been there, done that. So I read this book. I didn't rate it as high as some of the others because of that part. But I do like that Azami was kicking ass and basically killing people left, right, and center without them realizing it was about to come. Um, so, yeah, the next book I finished The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden. This is book 2 in the Winter Night or something like that series. I forget. I started this series last year around Yule time for during Witches Fest, and I did want to read the second one to see if I would like it more. I didn't hate the first book, but some things about the main character Vasiliev's personality, the way it was written, kind of rubbed me the wrong way, and it just fits better in this book. I enjoyed this book more, so I rated it higher. Um, I think I attempted to start reading this book earlier this year because I got the physical copy somewhere in the summer, but I just wasn't into it. But when the audiobook, of course, that I've been waiting for months popped up now this month, when I have like 3 readathons, I was like, of course I have to listen to it. I was 43% done with the book, so I continued it and finished it basically in a day, and I enjoyed it. It was very action packed. Overall, like I'm feeling the trend is she starts out really slow, setting up the atmosphere, and then the characters and their feelings on how things are went and then are going now, and then the action starts to ramp up, the consequences start to build up, and yeah, I was a little bit surprised about how things turned out in the end. I wasn't expecting some of the things because there was there was no frame of reference for them. You knew that that person was a bad guy, but not what type of bad guy they were. And I'm interested to see what's going to happen in the next book. I definitely want to finish this trilogy where I went into feeling kind of about reading the second book. I definitely want to read the third one. So thumbs up. It's getting better as we go, and I'm having less issues with the story than I had in the first one. So next up, I finished Peter Pan by J.M. Barrie. This is the Modern Library Classics edition, which I enjoy. I don't really like the picture. I think this is either Tinkerbell or Peter Pan. I can't be sure. But I got this a long time ago, and I read this for the Believathon. This is my book set in the past, I decided. Again, it was really short. It took me longer to get through this. I wasn't, like, I can't remember the last time I read the actual Peter Pan story. I just, like, it's a comfort read like Winnie the Pooh, but not quite as comforting. So yeah, I don't know what else to say except that this was really good, but I wasn't as into it, so it took me longer to read. It's kind of like Winnie the Pooh in the fact that it feels like a bunch of short stories. Like, this wasn't written all in one go meant to be originally a linear story, but not quite. There are chunks like the beginning where, Peter Pan shows up and what's happening with the Darling family. I'm calling them the Darling family because that's easier to just lump them all together. Uh, where Peter shows up and then he takes them to Neverland, and that kind of, the beginning is like a chunk, and then um, the ending where, Wendy's like, we need to go home, and all the Lost Boys want to go with her, and this is spoilers, but it's Peter Pan. Like, this is like 1911 spoilers, so I can't help you if you don't know already. But yeah, when Peter's like she wants to go, Wendy's like she wants to go home, and Michael and John are with it, and the Lost Boys, they want a mother too. They think everything is gonna be a fun adventure, and then the whole thing with Hook and the pirates, and then actually going home, and that melds very nicely into the future as Wendy grows up, because that is included in here. And her daughter Jane, and Jane's daughter, I think Margaret, or whatever, but she's not that important to the story. But those two chunks feel like they're supposed to be that way, even though they're kind of multi-chaptered. It's the bits in the middle, the lagoon section, and the, let me just look at this. Peter on guard. To die would be an awfully big adventure, and those two kind of feel separated. The home on the ground, even just in the little house, those all feel like very separate stories that were added kind of at different times than the beginning and the end. So yeah, just I guess because of the time difference, like there's a time jump in the middle chapters between each chapter, because they were in Neverland a lot longer than I thought, than I remembered. And it takes a lot longer for them to get to Neverland, and also to get back from Neverland, than I remembered. There was just a bunch of things, but this is also like told in a narrated style, like third person, but like there's a narrator telling you what happens, and we kind of just jump into Peter's mind or Wendy's mind when, and occasionally Hook's mind, when we feel like it. Hook comes off really way more odd here than he does in like the Disney movie, or even the Hook the movie, or any other Peter Pan things that I've seen. But I still enjoyed this. It just felt a little bit disjointed, and I got more of the feeling that I don't like, or that I don't like short stories while reading this, than I did with Winnie the Pooh, if that makes any kind of sense. So next I finished the audiobook for The Fellowship of the Ring by J.R.R. Tolkien. This was a month of reading authors with initials. So I had A.A. Milne, I had J.M. Barrie, I had J.R.R. Tolkien. But yeah, so I literally just finished that today. It came in again, something I've been waiting months for, and it came in now because why not? But I listened to it. It's like 3.5 hours. It was shorter than I thought. It was the audio of a play, so we get a full cast. It's the recording of their acting, and it's really good. Like, you hear the music and the ramping up, like when the ring race are coming, and it's just your heart's pounding and everything. I've been listening to this while working on updating my Etsy shop and promoting my upcoming after Thanksgiving Day sale. So I really enjoyed it. I just don't like Frodo's voice. Um, I also don't think there's enough difference in tone between some of the characters. Like Boromir sounds very similar to Legolas in my head. Oh, or not in my head, but in the audio to me. I don't know if it's me. And then Gandalf and oh, I forget his name, but the lead elf in whatever. I they sound very similar, so I don't know. There's just not enough difference in vocal tone. And then Samwise Gamgee sounds like an idiot. He sounds like a very silly young child, which I didn't appreciate. But the worst to me is definitely Frodo, who sounds like he could not care about anything. Like, his voice is very monotone and calm no matter what's happening. And I'm just like, really, Frodo? Really? Really? Is that? But I picked it up because I didn't want to. I haven't reread the Lord of the Rings in a really long time, and I wanted to, but I knew I wouldn't have time with all the new things I want to read. So I was like, well, let me try an audiobook. That would be interesting. That's different, and it'll remind me of the original story, not the movies where a lot of things were taken out. So yeah, like half of this was just them trying to get to Rivendell, and or that wasn't even the original plan, but Bilbo leaving on his birthday or disappearing on his birthday and to Rivendell was like literally an hour and 40 minutes. Or Frodo and the other hobbits getting to Rivendell was like an hour and 40 minutes, which I was not expecting. They met more people on that trip than I remembered. And there's something else that I don't think is quite the same. So at some point I'll reread the original, but it's also shorter than I remembered. I was looking at the book too, and I was like, I thought these were huge tomes, but they're like 300 to 400 pages, so not that bad. Or at least Fellowship of the Ring is. So I think that's all I'm going to update you on for now. I'll leave the next book for the next update. Let me know if you've read any of these. Are you participating, or did you participate in Tome Topple? Are you participating in Nonfiction November or the Believathon? What books are you reading? Did you read any of the stuff that I've read? And what did you think? Most of my Believathon reads are going to be children's classics because that's what I felt like reading and that's what I know as far as children's books go. I tried to get Frostheart, but that came out on October 31st, and they don't even have them at the libraries yet. So, but yeah, links to everything in the description down below, all the readathon announcement videos. Let me know in the comments what you've read, what you think of the books that I've read, and I'll see you guys in the next video.